No, tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in his case and we were playing, like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep, and I woke up, and he was dead in the suitcase, so I don't know what happened.
Like, it was such a good day. I kid you not. It didn't end well. The weather was beautiful outside. My plan was not to go upstairs and go to sleep.
Well, that's what you did.
Yeah.
But not intentional love. I love George. Love him. To this day, still. Love him.
Fuck you! You told us you weren't drunk.
No, I was not drunk.
Right.
You think that I did that intentionally.
You intentionally left him in there and left the room. You went upstairs to a different room.
You intentionally did that.
You did.
Yes.
I'm blaming it on the wine. I do not want to get drunk. I can't get drunk.
Fuck you!
I will put my hand on the Bible. It was not intentional. I would do anything for him.
Wouldn't let him out of a suitcase.
Oh, gosh. I did not intentionally kill him.
He is dead as a result of
I
your
understand
actions.
that. I'm leaving it like this. I did not intentionally do this.
You blamed it on alcohol. Alcohol does a lot to people.
Yes, but I never said I was drunk.
Fuck you!
Alcohol is a shitty thing. I will never drink alcohol again.
So after what you have just witnessed, it seems an explanation is in order. Because on first impressions, I appreciate it may look confusing at first. But don't worry, all of it will make sense in good time. So picture this. George and Sarah are a couple, and drinking isn't just a hobby for these guys. I mean, they basically treat it like a full-time job. So they spend their days getting drunk and getting arrested. But if you'd asked Sarah how her life was going, she would quite confidently tell you that she is an overachieving mother of the year, bordering on genius, in fact.
I mean, I've always been a straight-A student. I am an outstanding mother to my son.
Okay.
I excel at everything.
I mean, the delusion starts very early with this particular character. So anyway, it's a standard Sunday evening. They're both completely blotto as usual when they decide to play hide and seek. Because of course they do. So George climbs into a suitcase and Sarah zips it up like it's the world's worst magic trick. Now, instead of letting him out, she decides this is the perfect moment to start berating this poor man.
For everything you've done to me. Fuck you.
And very quickly, the situation goes from funny to not so funny. So as you can imagine, he's now begging to be let out.
Sarah. Stupid. Sarah.
And before Sarah falls asleep, she decides a night in the suitcase wouldn't be the end of the world and might even do him some good. Now look, I'm sure she didn't mean to actually kill this man. I mean, this was pure Olympic level negligence and nothing more. However, she now finds herself with two options. Option 1, admit this was a terrible accident, take responsibility and accept the consequences, like most normal humans would in a tragic situation like this. Option 2, decide that because it was not intentional, she shouldn't be in trouble at all. Imagine believing the rule is that you shouldn't be punished as long as you didn't mean to do it. Then switching your trial strategy to self-defense, which requires you to say you did mean to kill him, even though you didn't. So you can get off a murder charge. That's the level of logic we are dealing with here. So anyway, that was the summary. And coming up, the full story. Welcome to No Contest. So Sarah Boone was born in Atlanta, Georgia, in 77. Jorge Torres was born just after, in 78, up in Philly. So two normal kids from two normal families. Nothing that hinted they would eventually end up on the news. So fast forward a few decades, and they're both technically adults now. Both married, George has 3 kids, Sarah has 1. That's the setup. So George's marriage eventually ends. He gets divorced and moves to Florida with his mum, his dad, his sister, and more brothers than I can count. So he wasn't perfect. He liked to drink a lot, but he had a good heart. Not a big guy either. Him and Sarah were basically in the same weight class, about 100 pounds soaking wet. And before he met Sarah, no police incidents. He never laid a hand on his wife or kids, ever. Sarah's path is different. So she moved to Florida when she was young. She had a mum, a dad, and 2 brothers. But most of her family passed away. And the brothers she does have, she barely sees them. And honestly, that's probably for the best. Because Sarah is one of those people who can drain the life out of a room just by walking into it. And here's the thing. I mean, Sarah isn't stupid. She's smart enough to be dangerous. And when you mix that with how unhinged she is, you're basically strapping a rocket to a bin fire. So she got good grades in high school and has been treating that like a lifetime achievement award ever since. So she bounced between jobs for years, never sticking with anything, falling out with people on a regular basis and collecting enemies as she goes. I mean, she's the kind of woman where if you spot her coming down the streets, your first instinct is to run in the opposite direction. I mean, there were no police incidents with Brian either. But when she drank, she'd turn aggressive with him. Not him with her with him. She'd attack him for no reason. And then the next day, instead of apologizing or even acknowledging it, she'd carry on treating him like he was still beneath her. She uses her son as proof she is a good person. In her mind, the fact that she is a mum is all the proof anyone should need that she can do no wrong. Although in reality, she's the type of mum who'll leave her husband and kid at home so she can go out drinking all day. I mean, she's sweet to people she wants something from, but if you're not useful, she can quite easily turn on you. She is genuinely one of the most unpleasant people you'll ever meet. So now you've got George, newly divorced, trying to rebuild his life with a solid family behind him, and Sarah still living with Brian, still making his life a misery, and still looking out for number 1. And that's the setup. 2 people heading toward the same pub in Winter Park without realizing that the second they meet, everything they touch is going to catch fire. And that day soon comes. The day this so-called love story apparently begins. So at this point, both George and Sarah are now living in Winter Park in Florida. So George is exactly where he usually is, in a bar at 11 a.m, flirting with other alcoholics and getting drunk like it's a full-time job. Meanwhile, Sarah decides that whilst Lucas is at school and Brian is at work, actually earning money that pays their rent, she deserves a quiet drink. So she heads to a bar, and that's where their eyes meet across the room. Or at least, they try to focus on each other, which must be difficult when you're seeing 3 of everybody. So they get talking and realise they have loads in common. They're both unemployed, both failed relationships, and both bordering on alcoholism. So they have their little honeymoon phase, which basically consists of Sarah leaving her family at home so she and George can go out drinking every day. So as you can imagine, this starts to irritate Brian, because it's just getting ridiculous now. So Judgment Day arrives when some drunk bloke turns up at Brian's home where their young child lives in the early hours, rat-ass and demanding to speak with Sarah. I mean, at this point, Brian has had enough. So he finally tells her she needs to leave. So Sarah and George decide to move in together and essentially live off Brian's alimony payments. And not only that, she drags her poor little disabled dogs, Penny and Tess, along for the ride too. So now picture it. They've got their own townhome in Winter Park. Lucas visits when Sarah remembers to collect him from school, which is rare. And even then, visits often end early because she wants to go drinking or George is too drunk. It becomes a rotation of forgot to collect him, collected him but didn't watch him, or sent him home early so she could get wasted. And with that level of parenting, their standard daily routine becomes wake up, get drunk, get more drunk, have an argument, go to bed, repeat. There were also multiple occasions where things got physical. Always chaotic, always messy, and always starting with Sarah. So she went from lashing out at Brian to lashing out at George instead. The only difference was that George didn't take it the way Brian did. And it didn't take long before the local patrol officers were on first name terms with both of them too. A pattern formed almost immediately. So Sarah would kick off and turn aggressive with George. George would stand up for himself, and then Sarah would call 911 to get him arrested, only to bail him out the very next day. So that's it. They meet, have a brief honeymoon period, and then dedicate their lives to terrible parenting, drinking, living off Brian, causing chaos in the apartment complex, and wasting police time. So anyway, February 23rd, 2020 rolls around, and the day starts exactly how you'd expect with these two. So they wake up, open one eye, and immediately reach for whatever was left in last night's Magnum bottle of wine. No water, no breakfast, just straight back into it, like they're clocking in for a shift. So once they'd finished that, instead of eating something sensible to soak it up, they head straight to Publix to buy another Magnum. Because priorities. And for anyone unsure what a Magnum is, picture a bottle of wine the size of a fire extinguisher. So they go home, drink that one too, and by 5 p.m, they're back at Publix again. Third Magnum in under 24 hours. So at this point, things are starting to get messy. And as you can imagine, they're not exactly in peak condition. So anyway, dinner time rolls around. It's about 7 p.m. and George decides to call his brother Juan to say hello. And then the kids for the same reason. Something he does regularly and something that always seems to cause problems whenever the children's mum was around. Even though George was literally just calling to speak to the kids. So he hangs up, and according to neighbours, that's when the shouting match starts. So the next piece of evidence we have is from around 11 p.m. So by this point, they'd been arguing for most of the evening, when neighbours reported hearing an almighty bang. A noise so loud, it sounded like someone had launched a fridge freezer down the staircase. Then everything goes quiet. Not because they'd kissed and made up, far from it. So we don't know exactly what happened in those minutes. But what we do know is that around 11:15, George is downstairs, not too far from the foot of the staircase, and inside a large suitcase that's fully zipped up. And not only is he zipped inside it, Sarah is filming him, and he's begging to be let out.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Sarah. I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah. 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 Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Real or ransom. Might want to get video for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Real or ransom.
Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you ching on me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
I can't breathe, Sarah.
Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
Sarah.
Now, we don't know how he got into the suitcase, but here's what we do know. The suitcase normally lives upstairs. Neighbours heard a massive bang that travelled down the staircase. The suitcase that normally stays upstairs is now downstairs in the lounge, and George is inside it. And not only that, he was begging to be let out. So after that first video, there's roughly a 10-minute gap before the next one. And no surprise, George is still in the suitcase, still zipped in, still begging.
Sarah.
And after that second video, the evidence trail goes quiet. No more recordings, no more shouting, nothing. So she decides to take herself upstairs to bed. The next day rolls around, the sun comes up, Sarah is still in bed. In fact, she doesn't even get up until after midday. And the only reason she wakes up at all is because Brian is blowing her phone up. And of course he is. I mean, she was supposed to have Lucas that day. And Brian is doing what he always does, calling to see whether she is going to let him down again or not. Because at this point, that's just standard and to be expected. So she finally gets up and goes downstairs, only to find George still in the suitcase, still zipped in, still exactly where she left him. And instead of doing the obvious, she calls Brian to ask what she should do. Brian, who at this point is basically the only functioning adult in this entire situation, tells her to call 911. And that's what she finally does.
911, what is the location of your emergency? 4748 France Court, apartment 3.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
So the 911 operator starts talking her through CPR, which honestly seems like hard work for Sarah. I mean, she's more focused on giving excuses and explaining herself than actually concentrating on helping George.
Okay, 4748 France, correct?
Correct.
All right, correct. Now tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in his case and we were playing. And
Okay.
like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Like, he has, like, blood coming out of his mouth, and I don't know if, like, he had, like, an aneurysm or what happened.
So he was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
Right, is he breathing?
No.
All right. I need you to get him on the floor, flat on his back for me, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR. He's stiff and purple.
Right, okay, listen. Okay, man, that's fine. We're still going to do compressions on him, okay? All right? Okay, ma'am.
Please! Okay, he just gurgled.
Okay, listen to me. Keep on pumping his chest for me. I don't need you to stop and talk or anything. I just want you to count out loud for me, okay?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I mean, she half follows the operator's instructions, stopping every few seconds to argue with him and interrupting with completely unhelpful comments, like tell them to hurry.
Come on, please, hurry up.
Okay, ma'am, they're driving here as fast as they can. Okay, don't stop to say hurry up. Just keep on pumping and counting. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Please hurry.
Okay, ma'am, they're getting here as fast as they can, okay?
He's stiff and he's purple.
Okay, keep pumping his chest for me, ma'am.
I'm still doing it, okay? Please.
Keep on pumping, ma'am.
She should be doing compressions and nothing else until the professionals walk through the door. But as usual, Sarah knows best.
This is horrific.
They're in the parking lot. They should be up there shortly, okay?
Yes.
And you found them in a suitcase, you said?
Yes. We were playing hide and seek last night. I fell asleep. I think they're here.
So the medical emergency team arrive and take over, followed by a swarm of officers in CSI. So one of those officers is Officer Rodriguez, and she's a very good officer. I mean, you can tell instantly that she's experienced. She knows exactly what she is doing, and more importantly, she knows exactly how to handle Sarah, because normally Sarah is an extremely difficult person. Give her an inch and she will take over the entire room. So she puts her in her place and it works. Sarah behaves. In fact, she spends most of the day sat on the floor with her legs crossed like a naughty schoolgirl. So anyway, Sarah has an initial chat with Officer Rodriguez and immediately blurts out a story that, in my opinion, is absolutely insane.
Like, he and I were putting a puzzle together. We've been doing some artwork together.
You are putting a puzzle together?
Yes, we have a puzzle that we started in there.
Okay.
We've been doing art, trying to take the stuff off the wall to make new art put up there, like having a good time with one another. But we're drinking. We had a bottle of wine last night.
Okay. Fine.
So then it's like, we decided to play hide and seek, right?
Okay.
So he gets in the suitcase. I'm giving him CPR. The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep. All we had was a bottle of wine. Literally, just a bottle of wine.
Okay.
Doing puzzle artwork. Then we decided to play hide and seek. That's all that happened.
Okay.
So I don't know if he had a heart attack or what in there. Like, I don't know what happened.
So you were playing and who zipped him up in?
I did, but then I fell asleep.
Okay. You're okay. I wasn't here. I'm just trying to figure out what happened.
I fell asleep.
Here, let me fill this deputy in, okay?
Please, may I have my Dr. Pepper? I am so cotton mouth right now.
I mean, what was she thinking? At least come up with something that makes sense. So get this. Her explanation to try and avoid going to prison for the rest of her life is that they had one bottle of wine between them, not the 4.5 litres still on top of the bin with 3 receipts to match, one 0.75 litre bottle. And apparently they were playing hide and seek. So according to her, George hid in the suitcase. She zipped him up. Strange hide and seek rules. But anyway, that's what she said. Then she claims she just fell asleep. But apart from that, they had an amazing day. They truly love each other. And she can't understand how this happens.
Putting puzzles together, doing artwork.
Okay.
Had a bottle of wine and then decided to play hide and seek. And I fell asleep.
Okay.
forgetting that he was
So
in
you
the
guys
suitcase.
were playing the hide and go seek.
Yes.
And at some point you put him in the suitcase?
No, he got in the suitcase. So he thought it would be funny to be put in the suitcase. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to joke with you and I'll zip you up and make him, you know, squirm a little bit, whatever it is. But then I fell asleep.
Give us a second, okay?
Somebody else on that call break and
It's on the counter.
I can't move anything from out of the house. Here, I want you to sit down because I don't want you passing out. This is probably a lot for you to deal with, right?
And not only that, Sarah had also demanded that Brian come over. And he does. So the officer has a quick chat with him too. Even though they're separated, Sarah constantly hassles him every single day, either asking for extra money or wanting someone to stay with whenever she and George were arguing. And the worst part, if Brian didn't want to hand over extra money one month, money he knows full well is going straight into the Sarah Boone alcohol fund, she'd threaten him with, well, if you don't pay me, I can't afford hot water. So our son Lucas will suffer. I mean, honestly, this woman is a disgrace.
Your ex-wife or current
Yes,
wife?
yes.
Okay.
No, ex-wife. We've
Okay.
been divorced about a year and a half. About 11:30 is when I started calling to find out, because this is supposed to be her day.
Can you give me 1764, please?
Okay.
She's generally not very good about always doing it. She tends to drink.
They called back and said she was still there, or she came back.
So I was calling to find out if she was going to be getting him or not today.
From school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and she told me what was going on and if I'd come over here.
You go inside and see, and then...
I walked inside the front. I didn't see the little front tile area.
Come on, step this way.
I saw legs.
So the next law enforcement to turn up are the detectives. And they make a beeline straight for Sarah after getting a quick briefing from the officers already on scene. So they ask her what happened. And of course, Sarah uses that opportunity to start spinning her tales again. Not only that, she also starts going on about fearing for her life. Because now that this has happened, George's family apparently are now going to want to kill her, since they'll think she did this on purpose. I wonder why they might think that.
Why or how? So we will not know the answer to that because we're not doctors. So what's going to happen is he's going to go to the medical examiner's office and he'll have what's called an autopsy.
Yeah. I'm like really scared. I want you guys to know that.
That
They're going to think I killed him.
Why would they think that?
They always have said that. They've always have said that.
What have they
I
said?
told you it's because I'm the blue-eyed white dragon. That's what they call me. But like, I don't, like, this was totally like not intentional.
So after spending pretty much the entire day sitting on the pavement like a child, complaining and moaning, one thing really stood out. Her constant requests for her Dr. Pepper can.
Okay.
Please may I have my Dr. Pepper?
Now, I'm not making any claims here, but let's just say this. Based on her behaviour, her history, and the situation she'd woken up to, it's not hard to imagine that whatever was in that can might not have been Dr. Pepper. So she'd just woken up to the hangover from hell. And anyone who understands addiction knows this. An addicted brain doesn't think like a normal one. The drink or the drug always comes first, especially in a stressful situation. So addicts don't reach for their substance of choice to party. They reach for it just to function, just to face the day. And this was not a normal day. So the fact that she was laser focused on that can, despite a tap being right next to her, tells you everything you need to know. And just before she was finally allowed to leave, the officers asked her if she'd be happy for them to download her phone. She agreed immediately. No hesitation, no concern. And once she'd given that permission, she was technically free to go. So at this point, it wasn't clear whether Sarah genuinely didn't remember taking the videos, or whether she'd deleted them and assumed she was safe. Either way, she would soon learn that the video hadn't disappeared at all. So the next day rolls around. The autopsy results are in, the phone extraction is done, and detectives have now had front row seats whilst watching Sarah's little homemade movies. So at this point, they know she's going to be locked up by the end of the day. But obviously, they can't say that because she'd be halfway to the airport before they'd finished the sentence. So they keep it friendly. They call her up, tell her the autopsy results are in, pop in, and we'll go through them. And by the way, your phone's ready to collect too. And she buys it. So she comes straight in, sits down, and immediately it's story time again. The difference this time is simple. The detectives don't believe a single word of it.
So, this morning we went to his autopsy, and we were informed of some injuries that he has. So he had some injuries to his left shoulder. He had a cut near his lip. He also had, on the left side of his forehead, he had basically bruising, and on his head and his skull.
I have no idea.
As if something hit him.
I
considered
have not
force
touched him.
trauma.
Thoroughly confused because we had a good time sitting on the back porch having wine and smoking a couple of cigarettes, and then decided to go inside and literally paint, do puzzles, and play. I have not touched him. I have not touched him.
Then how would you get those injuries?
Tell me and we'll both know. He's notorious for running into the wall. I have no idea. We had a good day. It was a good day. I don't want to drink. I have to tend to Lucas. I have to take him to school. I have all this stuff to do. I can do 50 things at once and still know the 50 things more prior that I need to get done. Because I don't want to drink. I can't get drunk. Number one, I do not want to get drunk. I don't like feeling out of control. I was so happy. It was such a good day. I kid you not. The weather was beautiful outside. No, I was not drunk.
Right.
I was not drunk. Nobody knew George better than I did. I say that I knew George better than himself. I helped him. I took care of him. I miss him a lot, and I didn't even sleep last night. I'm here now because I'm still trying to help him.
Yeah, we just don't, it's unexplainable how he got these injuries, and
I have no idea.
You were the only one with him.
Worked on the puzzle again, finished it, started at the top, paint, whatever. Okay, you want to play hide and seek? What he does is, okay, tag, you're it. So it's okay, we know. Okay, take off. That's what we did. The suitcase originally is in our closet, buried all the way to the back. I would never do that.
You would never zip them up in a suitcase?
We were actually this last game running out of places to hide.
Okay, so do you remember making any videos or maybe having any photos, videos that you remember doing on your phone on Sunday?
No.
No? To your recollection, no videos on Sunday?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So I have something that I want to show you that we found, and it was from your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
If you need to move it around, go ahead.
No, I don't remember that.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me.
Your battery's about to die.
Shutting down.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you all understand who I am, where...
Okay. Well, tell me.
I've always been a straight-A student. I am an outstanding mother to my son.
Okay.
I excel at everything. I would not do that.
You wouldn't zip somebody in a suitcase? No, it's just the way you said it.
You guys are scaring me.
Why?
Well, we just want you to watch this. This came from your phone. Don't you want to know what's on it?
Yes, please. Is it long? Because I don't know how much I can take.
No.
Do I have to watch this? It's that long?
2 minutes.
No.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you.
And this
Fuck
is,
you.
that's you, your voice.
Stupid. Sarah. That's my name. Don't wear it up. I can't fucking breathe it. Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. Sarah.
I don't want to watch it, please.
Last time we talked to you, you had said that you put him in the suitcase, he had 2 fingers hanging out, and you
I
went
flipped
to
him
bed.
over. I flipped him over, and that's where it was.
How did it go from the back to the front?
I flipped it.
Okay.
My plan was not to go upstairs and go to sleep,
Well, that's what you did.
Yeah.
but not intentional.
Why is he saying I can't breathe, and why is he pushing on it as if he can't get out? There's no
Okay.
hole. There's no fingers. I don't see his fingers. There's no hole. He's begging for you to let him out. You're laughing in the beginning, and then in the end it sounds kind of like a...
No, it's not malicious.
Well, saying fuck you.
It's not malicious.
You told me he was laughing, and
We were
the
before.
video, there's no
When we
laughing.
first got in there,
So it goes from funny to no longer funny,
but
you're the only one laughing.
But I didn't think that he was, like, panicky. Like,
So pushing up on a suitcase saying, Sarah, Sarah, Sarah,
I
I can't breathe. You're the only one laughing,
Okay.
and you're the only one saying derogatory comments. You know what's on that video now?
No.
You remember making that video?
No.
Why don't you remember making the video?
Probably because we had been drinking.
But you weren't drunk.
My plan was not to go upstairs and go to sleep. It's the drinking. That's what it is. It's the drinking.
And his video explains itself. It really, truly does.
I'm leaving it like this. I did not intentionally do this. No malicious content or effort was towards this. No malicious.
The fuck you is very, very...
You don't talk to people
Obvious.
like that. That's not like a common, like,
Nope.
hey, Scott, fuck you.
There's no maliciousness towards
Okay.
that.
He's begging for his life. He's begging to get out. You go upstairs. You're now changing
Who's
your
lying
story.
about what?
You're now you were drunk.
Oh, I never said that I was drunk.
You blamed it on the alcohol. Alcohol does a lot to people.
Yes, but I never said I was drunk.
Okay.
All right, do me a favor, stand up. I need you to turn around, face the wall, put your hands behind your back. Do you have anything in your pockets that I should know about?
No.
And that was that. After 2 hours of going round in circles, the detectives finally pull the plug. They've heard enough. She's done. Sarah is arrested on the spot and taken away to what would essentially become her new home for the next 4.5 years. And yes, normally this whole process wouldn't take anywhere near that long. But this is Sarah we're dealing with. And now that George was no longer around to absorb her chaos, she needed a new target. So she set her sights on the entire justice system. And boy, were they about to get the full Sarah experience. And this is when things really start to go off the rails. Normal people, when they're charged with something serious, meet their lawyer, listen to advice, and let the professional do their job. But Sarah isn't normal. Sarah is a full-blown control freak who genuinely believes she can outthink the entire justice system. She doesn't want a defense. She wants a fantasy. She wants a version of events where she's magically absolved of everything, despite the interview, despite the evidence, and despite that very damning video. At this point, Any sane person would realize it's damage control time, not Sarah. In her mind, because she didn't mean it, she shouldn't be in trouble at all. And because she refuses to accept reality, she goes to war with everybody. Instead of showing remorse, instead of owning what she did, she starts burning through lawyers like they're cups of tea, one after another, each one trying to explain the situation, each one eventually realizing that they're dealing with someone who isn't living on the same planet as the rest of us. And not only that, she's not just disagreeing with these lawyers. She's outright berating them, calling them names, talking to them the same way she used to talk to George.
She doesn't trust me. She calls me a dud, I think, a buffoon, on and on and on and on. And no one should have to endure that type of derogatory comments and expect to effectively represent someone, especially in a murder case.
It's the same cycle on repeat. She meets a lawyer, they try to help, she doesn't like what she hears, they fall out, and suddenly she's firing off abusive letters to the judge like she's writing customer complaints. And round it goes. There always has to be someone in her life getting it. First it was Brian, then it was George, and now it's the lawyers and the judge. She just rotates victims like she's spinning a carousel. This woman is genuinely awful. Not just difficult, awful. Every single person who tries to help her ends up getting dragged into the same toxic mess. And she still acts like she's the one being wronged. So anyway, she finally gets to lawyer number 8, attorney Cashman. So by this point, about 4 years have passed, and she's still no further forward. And even though Cashman is actually a very well-regarded defense lawyer, somehow she isn't good enough. So this woman genuinely tried. I mean, she put in the work. She stayed professional. But then Sarah pulls the classic routine. She's not being nice enough to me. It's pitiful.
Ma'am, you said there was something else that you had other than a 58-page submittal or letter.
I'm not saying that I'm trying to remove her. I'm just trying to ask you, please, forgive me for having to ask you for this. If you could please let her know, please, to just be nice to me and have a welcoming attitude, and things will probably change, and I will not get up and I walk out.
The woman who treats everyone like something she trod in is suddenly upset because Cashman isn't being nice enough. After Cashman is relieved, the judge has finally had enough. They tell her straight, you can't keep doing this. The court is sick of your antics. No more games, no more cycling through lawyers like you're speed dating. If nobody is good enough, then fine. It's pro se time for you, inmate Boone. You're on your own, and good luck with that. And this is where Sarah suddenly realizes she's made a huge mistake. And now she's sitting in court with absolutely no idea what she is doing. And she looks like she's about to cry. But Sarah doesn't do defeat. So at this point, she knows her case is going viral. For all the wrong reasons, I might add. And she knows people are talking about her. She even refers to the people watching this circus as her fans. At this point, I think we can safely say she's lost the plot. But for once, she uses that evil brain of hers or something vaguely productive. She creates a flyer, basically advertising for a lawyer who wants exposure. Come and get your 15 minutes of fame. Defend me, the indefendable. And this is where Mr. Owens appears. Not entirely sure he knew what he was walking into, but he makes contact. and suddenly Sarah has a lawyer again. She's no longer representing herself. And when I first heard this, I genuinely stopped and thought, hold on, how on earth has this happened? So I looked into it. And apparently the explanation is this. So Owens watches a lot of true crime. He sees Sarah's situation, decides this poor woman is being forced into going pro se, and concludes that the system has failed her. In his mind, he's stepping in as some kind of legal superhero.
Well, I watch a lot of YouTube. Kept watching it being delayed and the lawyers being switched, and then the judge got fed up and ruled that she had forfeited her right to a court-appointed counsel. For the judge to revoke that right was a serious decision on his part, but that left her facing a murder charge without a lawyer. Everybody needs a lawyer.
And because nobody else was coming forward to help her, this do-gooder decides he'll shut down his entire practice to take on her case. The whole thing was bizarre. Then came the best part. When asked if he was doing it for free, because remember, Sarah was indigent at this point, he says no, not at all. Sarah has agreed to pay him back.
And you're doing this pro bono?
No.
What are you getting?
Well, Sarah's got to pay me back one day.
Pay him back? With what? She's been living off Brian since she left home. She has no money, no assets, nothing. The truth is, it looked far less like charity and far more like someone who wanted to be on television. But the real question isn't why he stepped in. The real question is, does Owens have any idea what he's just signed up for? So anyway, the defense they come up with, just so everybody is clear, is self-defense. Self-defense? She was the initial aggressor. And not only that, he was locked in a suitcase. What was he supposed to do from inside the luggage? It's the most backwards excuse you could possibly imagine. And not only that, they wanted to run battered spouse syndrome alongside it. So by this point, they actually had a plan. Not a good one, but a plan nonetheless. The whole idea was to paint Sarah as this terrified, long-suffering partner who lived in constant fear for her life. According to them, she spent her days doing good deeds, helping George become a better person, and basically being Mother Teresa with a wine habit. So now she has to transform from the angry drunk we've all come to know into this softly spoken, gentle soul who wouldn't say boo to a goose. Someone so petrified of George that she supposedly couldn't let him out of the suitcase because she feared that he would kill her. And honestly, if George didn't want to hurt her before, I'm sure he would have done if she would have ever let him out of that damn suitcase. Anyway, that was the defense. And finally, after 4.5 long years of chaos, delays, tantrums, and lawyer hopping, the trial was set to begin. But just before it does, I need to make you aware of something quickly. The court, just prior to the trial, and against their better judgment, decided to offer Sarah a genuine lifeline, a plea deal for voluntary manslaughter, and a fixed 15-year sentence. So with Florida's 85% rule and her time already served, she'd likely face only 7 or 8 more years before walking out of prison. And she turns it down.
Ma'am, understanding the state's offer, do you wish to accept or reject the state's offer to resolve this case?
At this point, it's just getting ridiculous. She turns down a deal that would have basically saved her life. And now she's boxed herself in to one outcome: win or never experience fresh air ever again. Because when you reject a gift like that, after dragging the entire justice system through years of nonsense and wasted taxpayer money, they're not giving you a soft landing if you lose. They're throwing the book, the shelf, and the whole library at you. So yeah, she didn't just gamble. I mean, she made sure that if the jury doesn't buy her story, it's over. You don't take the mick out of the American justice system and walk away smiling. Not a chance. And she was about to learn that the hard way. So it was now October 14th, 2024, and everyone was in their seats. So after years of lawyers, 58-page letters, and Sarah picking fights with absolutely everyone in her orbits, we're finally ready to begin. But before we do, I need to make it clear what she was being charged with and what the state had to prove to convict. So Boone was charged with second-degree murder under the depraved mind standard, meaning the state had to prove three things. Jorge Torres is dead. His death was caused by the criminal act of Sarah Boone, and there was an unlawful killing of Jorge Torres by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. That's it in a nutshell. Nothing dramatic, just those 3 points. So now we have that out of the way, we can proceed with the introductions. So Judge Michael Kranick is on the bench. And honestly, he's perfect for this case. Fair, calm, but absolutely not someone you can push around. He's clearly aware of the appeal risks, but he also knows how to keep Sarah from turning the trial into her own production. So on the state side, we've got the two assistant state attorneys, William J. and Dave Cacciatore. And by this point, these men are done. They've lived through every day, every complaint, every meltdown. I mean, you can practically see the exhaustion on their faces. Then we look over at the defense table. And this is where things get interesting. So Owens is there with his entourage, which basically comprises his entire law practice. But the first thing you notice isn't the number of people, it's the seating arrangements. So normally the lawyers sit together so they can actually communicate and run a defense. But here, Sarah has planted herself right in the middle. And that setup tells you everything about what Owens had walked into. It wasn't that he was her puppet, although you could be excused for thinking that. It was that he was trying to do his job while she sat beside him, acting like a one-woman command center. So now that we have met everybody, we can crack on. So as is normal, the prosecution opens with their opening statement, which will be followed by the defense. So William stands up, clears his throat, and then immediately wanders away from the mic, like he's giving a guided tour of the courtroom.
Evidence this case is going to show you is that this defendant zipped Jorge Torres shot in a suitcase. She was able to do this because at the time of his death, he only weighed 103 pounds. And she did this with the malicious intent to punish him. And then she went up to sleep and left him to take his final breaths on this earth alone. The evidence is going to show Jorge Torres is dead because in this defendant's judgment, and out of a conscious disregard for whether he lived or died, you will see and hear these videos.
We're all leaning in like pensioners, trying to hear the TV, because basically he's whispering into the void. But honestly, it didn't matter too much. He was just recapping things we already knew. So he went through the script of her infamous video, word for word, then walked everyone through the 911 call and the interrogation in a similar manner. So if it half sounded like he was mumbling into a sock, no great loss. When he did come back to the podium, however, he did mention something quite interesting. A text conversation we weren't aware of at this point between Sarah and one of George's brothers, where she literally said she'd get rid of him.
The brother responds, "Please do something with yourself, Sarah. God bless you." The defendant's response, "And bless you and all of you too. I'll get, in all capitals, rid of him. Then it'll be, in all capitals, better." The next text is, "Hide and seek I shall."
And honestly, that's the kind of thing that could have nudged this towards a first-degree argument. But unfortunately, that was it. One text, nothing else to support it. So that's as far as it went. Then Owens steps up, and suddenly we're in a completely different universe. He launches straight into battered spouse syndrome.
And as everybody knows, couples can have great times where things click, everybody gets along, and then we can have episodes of disagreement. And how are those resolved? Really, is what this is about. How are disagreements resolved? But George was very jealous of Sarah. And you're going to hear the testimony about that. And that he cannot, in certain situations, he can be very charming. But when his level of intoxication gets to a certain level, is when he gets sad, moody, and a lot of times eventually it involved forcible sex with Sarah Boone or actual physical violence against her.
And from that moment on, it becomes the entire backbone of the defense. Forget self-defense, forget reality, forget jury instructions. Their whole plan was to drown the courtroom in battered spouse jargon and hope the jury would get so overwhelmed they'd start believing Sarah's new fairy tale version of events.
So you're going to be able to see the evidence and we believe the court will instruct you at the end when you're considering self-defense, which we call justifiable use of non-deadly force or justifiable use of deadly force, that you can consider the prior acts, the history of violence, the prior difficulties that the parties had. And considering her set of circumstances that she was faced with in making the decision to use reasonable force under the circumstances. And the most important thing I can tell you here today is keep an open mind.
Owens did touch on what supposedly happened that day, but his version boiled down to this. So George got into the suitcase. It was all fun and games. Sarah zipped him up, still fun and games. Then she starts abusing him on camera for no apparent reason. But then, according to Owens, something dramatic happened in the 9-minute gap between video 1 and video 2.
Now let's talk about this day, February 23rd of 2020. And at some point, they're intoxicated at a high level. As some people do when they're drunk, they get silly. And they decide to play a game of hide and seek. Well, she comes down the steps, she sees him getting in and settling in the suitcase. So she walks over there and, they see each other, they smile and laugh, and she zips him up. And she zips him up and they laugh for a while. They carry on. She sits on the couch. And at some point he says, I can't breathe. And she doesn't know. They're intoxicated. She doesn't know whether he's just saying that to try to get her to get him out or what. But she's got him now. He claims he can't get out. It's a unique form of physical restraint. And so she lets him have it. Says things she shouldn't say. There's another video that's approximately 11 minutes later. And it's only 22 seconds. Now the key to the case is that 11 minutes. And what happened during that 11 minutes. Okay? That is the key to this case. Sarah Boone will take the stand. She will explain what happened. She will explain why it happened. The evidence will show that she was justified in the action she took to prevent an attack from Jorge Torres.
So George apparently went from begging to threatening to kill her. The part that conveniently wasn't filmed. And then when she starts recording again, 9 minutes later, he's suddenly calm and back to begging again. If that's not trying to insult the jury's intelligence, I don't know what is. So in summary, these guys didn't just support their self-defense claim with battered spouse, they flipped it. They pretty much made battered spouse syndrome the main defense and shoved self-defense into the background like a spare tire. And no wonder, because every time you hear the evidence, their story doesn't just sound far-fetched, it was offensive to even have to listen to. I cannot believe we waited nearly 5 years for this. So following opening statements, the state now gets to present their case before it's over to the defense. And as usual, they start with the basics, the law, the timeline, and the first responders. So Officer Rodriguez, who we already met on bodycam, comes in to talk about her role and confirm everything we saw on that footage. Straightforward stuff. Then we hear from Detective Copesall, the lead detective we already met in the interrogation. So because she was the lead, she could talk about the case better than anyone. But she also had a more highlighted role in the run-up to the trial, because not long before this, they held a suppression hearing. Why? Because the defense suddenly had a problem. So with Sarah's new defense strategy, her story had to change with it. It wasn't a great day that ended in an accident while they were playing like children anymore. Now it was something far more sinister, and her interrogation was going to blow that new story to pieces. So of course, the defense wanted it thrown out. So the defense's entire argument hung on a very thin line. That Sarah was apparently deceived into coming into the Orange County station for that chat, and that she felt threatened because Detective Cohen's had a gun. Lawyers always try that one. The detective was armed, as if police officers normally turn up to interviews unarmed and holding a daisy. And then they tried to argue that Copesall used an old Miranda card, so she missed the last line. That bit that basically says, now that I've read you your rights, are you happy to talk to me?
And then the question number 9, do you wish to talk to us at this time as to whether or not my client, Sarah Boone, actually waived her right to remain silent? If she understood her rights and then she consciously and freely waived her rights. She was not asked that question. Do you know how many questions you did read to her? 8. Okay.
But if you think about it, everything before that line is about her rights before she talks.
So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before and during questioning without charge. If you cannot afford a lawyer and want one can be provided for you before questioning without charge. Has anyone threatened you or promised you anything to get you to talk to me?
No.
And do you understand what I just read you?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
So that missing line doesn't magically erase the rest of the warning.
We stand by all the case law that we've cited, and you have reviewed the evidence from start to finish. Under the totality of the circumstances of that 2-hour and 6-minute statement that she gave to law enforcement, she knowingly and intelligently and voluntarily waived her Miranda rights. And under the case law, it was done perfectly fine. So we're asking you, for the reasons that we stated in our multiple responses to their multiple amended motions, to deny their motion to suppress. Thank you.
I mean, after the state quoted a mountain of case law, the judge ruled that none of that changes anything. They don't have to read the last line for the Miranda warning to be valid. So the interrogation stayed in, and the defense lost the one thing they were desperately clinging to. And of course, the defense had to bring it all up again today. Not that it made any difference though. Nothing she said changed anything. So the next witnesses worth talking about were the two lads who lived next door to Sarah and George when this happened. They were basically there to explain what it was like living next to these two.
How often would you hear arguments or disagreements going on over there?
Very, very often.
And more importantly, the arguments they heard that night. So they both described the same pattern. The raised voices in the evening, and then this massive sound. Not a bang, something bigger, a noise that travelled down the staircase.
And at a certain point in the evening, did you hear a loud crashing sound?
Yeah, probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock that evening.
And can you describe that sound for us in more detail?
So I could hear something start above me super loud and then fall away from me like it was falling down the stairs. Literally, like it shook both of our rooms.
The kind that makes you stop mid-sentence and think, what the hell was that? And it wasn't just them who heard it. I mean, one of them was on FaceTime with his partner, and she heard it too. I mean, that's how loud it was.
There was a very, very loud noise that I heard that was loud and powerful enough to shake my bedroom wall. And I remember that because I was sitting on my bed on FaceTime with my girlfriend at the time, and I literally felt the wall shake and it stopped me mid-conversation. And she even asked me through the computer, like, what was that? And I was like, I have no idea.
You don't need to be a detective to see why the state wanted that on records. So next up was one of George's brothers, Juan. So his role was simple. He was there to confirm the chat he and George had at around dinner time on the day of the murder. And of course, the soundtrack in the background. Sarah shouting her usual drunken accusations like it was just another Tuesday.
Would it be fair to say you didn't get along with her?
Yes.
Back on February 23rd, 2020, did you have an occasion to talk to your brother on that day?
Yes, sir.
Now, in the background of that conversation on the evening of February 23rd, 2020, what did you hear?
Sarah's in the background yelling.
And you recognized her voice?
Yes, sir.
What was she yelling about?
Something about choking or how he choked her. I really don't. That pretty much, that was it.
How did the conversation end?
Because she was yelling in the background, so that was it. We just hung out.
So nothing new, nothing surprising. Just the same chaos everyone around them had learned to live with. And now for some factual stuff. So we couldn't really make our minds up on this part until we'd heard from the medical examiner. So she confirmed the important stuff first. So cause of death, positional asphyxia with environmental suffocation.
So the cause of death, which I put on the death certificate, is positional asphyxia with environmental suffocation.
So positional, meaning the fetal position, restricting the airway. Environmental, meaning the sealed suitcase with only a limited amount of oxygen.
And the manner of death I classified as homicide.
So simple, brutal, and impossible to spin. She also confirmed the multiple bruises, all shapes, all sizes.
So there's some ecchymosis around the left eye. There's also an area of ecchymosis up here on the left side of the forehead with also some swelling associated with that. The lips have some contusions and small lacerations. And then on the left shoulder here, you can see a little bit of some ecchymoses here, or again, ecchymoses are kind of like big bruises. So this is the left shoulder and arm. So again, you can see this kind of red to purple area. So this is all ecchymoses, and then a couple of linear abrasions or scratches. This is the same area, just a little bit closer up, so you can see this whole area of ecchymosis. It's a little bit variegated, differential in color, but again, that's all blunt force trauma. Left hand, right here and here. Those are all areas of ecchymosis, again, blunt force trauma. Again, the left arm, ecchymosis. And now looking at the left hand, a little bit closer up, so you can kind of see a little bit better these areas of ecchymosis. They could be scratch marks. They could also be blunt impact, more of just a straight-on blunt impact, especially being in that suitcase.
Could have been caused by being hit with a baseball bat or being thrown down the stairs. And either one of those options doesn't exactly look great for Sarah.
In total, how many blunt impact injuries did you identify?
I can't give you an exact number. Again, you can have multiple impacts in a very close area, so it can be hard to discern each one. They can overlay each other, or they can be so close to each other. But at least 5 to 6, most likely more than that.
So there we are. Now we know, and now the jury knows too. And before the state rested, of course, we had to hear from Brian. Long-suffering Brian. Poor Brian. I mean, he honestly seems like such a nice guy. The kind of bloke who just wants a quiet life. So how he ended up with Esmeralda, the Wicked Witch of Florida, is beyond me.
Well, apparently Sarah called me at one point during the night. She woke me up. I had work the next day. I was asleep when she called.
Now, the following morning, on February 24th, 2020, did you begin to call the defendant?
Yes, I did. Well, it was going to be Monday. I had him on Sunday and dropped him off at school, and I was calling to try to find out if she was going to be actually picking him up that day.
Why would you have a question about whether or not she was picking him up?
She wasn't generally very good about actually getting him on the day she was supposed to.
So now that the state had rested, the defense decided to try something. The kind of move you only bother trying when you are taking pot shots at pretty much anything. So they filed a motion for judgment of acquittal. And honestly, you can understand why they tried it, even though they must have known they were clutching at straws. So when your case is hanging by a thread, you'll take any legal lifeline you can get. So the attorney arguing it looked like he'd drawn the short straw. But when Sarah wants something, everyone suddenly becomes very eager to pretend it's worth a go.
At this time, the defense would move for a judgment acquittal. Now, there are 3 elements of the second-degree murder. The first is that the victim is dead. The state also has to show that it was caused by a criminal act and that the act was imminently dangerous and demonstrated a depraved mind. Jorge Torres voluntarily entered the suitcase. But I also want to focus on the depravity issue. Not only does the state have to show depravity, but it has to show that the act demonstrates an indifference to human life. I don't think that there is prima facie case that in fact she demonstrated hatred. There are 3 elements to this crime. Jorge Torres is dead, has been established. The death was caused by the criminal act of Sarah Boone, that has been established. There was an unlawful killing of Jorge Torres by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. It's not Miss Boone's subjective statements on February 25th. I had no idea you could die from being zipped into a suitcase for 13, 15 minutes before she goes to bed. 2, is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or an evil intent. We heard what she said, the 2-minute video starting at 11:12 p.m., 45 seconds. Fuck you, I don't care, laughing, is of such a nature that the act itself indicates an indifference to human life. Sarah, that's my name, don't wear it out. Judge, there's no question that a prima facie case has been laid.
So the judge shut it down immediately. Motion denied.
The court finds that the state has presented competent but rebuttal evidence to establish each of the elements of the charge contained in the information to the required level of a prima facie showing. As such, the defense's motion for a judgment of acquittal is denied.
With the videos, Boone's own statements, and the small detail of leaving someone zipped in a suitcase, there was more than enough for the jury to consider intent and depravity. So these motions almost never succeed when there's direct evidence. So the trial moved on.
Defense, do you intend on putting on a case?
So now that we'd finally got past that pointless stunt, it was time for the defense to present their case. And this is where the trial completely derailed. So Sarah had no choice but to take the stand first. She had to sell her new version of events whilst milking the battered spouse angle before they brought in Dr. Harper to reinforce the narrative. So during her new story, it was still Sunday Funday up until just after 11.
I looked over and I saw him settling himself in the suitcase.
So at some point, did you zip him up?
Yes.
And what was he saying or doing when you were zipping him up?
We just thought it was funny.
Were you both laughing?
Yes.
But now, following that first very damning video, and before the second shorter video, we are expected to believe that he suddenly transformed from calm and pleading for his life to threatening to kill her.
So between the 2-minute video and the 22-second video, would you tell the jury what happened?
His tone changed, and I knew the tone, and we ended up, I guess, arguing back and forth with one another, and the things that he was saying very much frightened me, and cursing at me and threatening me. And
can you tell the jury what he was saying?
I don't know, am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
But he was going to fucking end me, and that's what made me ask him please to stop doing what he's doing to me, that he was going to, I'm guessing, try his best that night to probably take my life.
But what, the threat you heard was he's
going to
say the
fucking
word.
end me.
Excuse me?
Fucking end me.
End you?
Yes.
It makes no sense. No trapped person with any instinct for survival starts verbally attacking the only person who can let them out, especially someone as cruel and unhinged as Sarah Boone. She even testified that at one point he tried to get out of the suitcase by squeezing his hand through the alleged gap she left for him. So she started hitting him with the bat to make sure he got back in the box. They clearly needed some kind of explanation for all the bruises. And that was the story they settled on.
And his hand started to come through, his hand started to come through this way. And so I shook the suitcase, trying to get his hand to go back in, shaking it, and telling him that, please stop doing this, please stop doing this to me, please stop doing this to me.
And so what did you do?
For the split-second reaction that I had, I happened to see that, and I grabbed the baseball bat and was trying to poke his hand to go back in, to please don't break through, please. So I hit his hand.
After you had hit him with the bat, was he not trying to get out anymore?
No,
So in your mind, did you prevent him from attacking you?
absolutely.
And then in the second clip, he's suddenly calm again. Very calm. Meaning the only moment he allegedly went medieval is the one moment she didn't film. That magic 9 minutes between the two. So knowing Sarah, that's exactly the part she would have filmed if it were real. Because she never missed a chance to record anything that made George look bad.
And what happened after that?
I ended up falling asleep.
Okay. Why didn't you let him out before you walked upstairs? Were you afraid?
Terrified is more of the word.
As long as he was in the suitcase, he couldn't harm you.
Correct.
And then comes the fatal blow to her story. So despite claiming she was terrified of this man she'd locked in a suitcase, she didn't run. She didn't call 911. She didn't even leave the house. She just went to bed. So after hours of listening to them milk the battered spouse angle and sitting through Sarah's supposedly flawless 5-year-old memory, it was finally time for the cross-examination. And right on cue, the moment she's actually pressed on details, suddenly she can't remember a thing. It's priceless.
This is one of the 3 bottles that was purchased between February 22nd and the 2 that were purchased on February 23rd of 2020. So you may have started drinking even later, correct?
Then
12:30 when you get back from Publix?
I don't know.
Okay. Was it 1:30 or 2:30 when you began drinking?
I don't know.
All right. At what point in the night does your memory tape stop? What's the last thing you actually do remember prior to these videos being made?
I don't recall it at this point. I don't remember.
Okay. Did you take this image at 11:03 p.m.?
I don't remember if I did or not.
Do you remember anything from that night?
I do.
So what was your level of intoxication at this point in time when the first video was filmed at 11:12 p.m.? Did you have trouble with your balance?
I was more tired than anything.
Did you have trouble with your balance?
I don't believe so.
How quickly is it after you zip it shut that you begin filming the first video?
I don't know without watching it. I don't know.
How quickly after you zip them up is it before the video starts, is my question.
I don't know.
And then during that 9 minutes and 14 seconds is when he begins to get angry, correct?
What 9 minutes?
Between the 2 videos, there's 9 minutes and 14 seconds between the end of 1061 and the beginning of 1062 and 1063. And he was expressing his anger in what manner? How did he say this?
Told me that I was going to fucking die.
Is it fair to say that there are just points in time where you don't remember what you do either, correct?
Are you talking about almost 5 years ago?
And it doesn't stop there. So William also asked her to demonstrate how she zipped him into the suitcase. And this is where it gets better. So the moment she's asked to actually zip it up, she can't even get the zipper to work, which tells you everything. If she needed help to zip it from the outsides, how on earth was George meant to do it from the insides? Disorientated, injured, and trapped in a pitch black suitcase, unable to even scratch his head.
Just demonstrate how she zipped it shut.
Judge, the paperclip was on.
Is there an objection?
Yes?
Approach. Objections overruled.
All right.
If you feel most comfortable, sir.
Madam Court Reporter, you ready? Can we see how it was that the two zipper parts were positioned when you say that Mr. Torres was able to get his hand out? If you want me to do it, I'm fine to take your direction.
From what I remember, this is how the suitcase was. This was up here. This was not this hard either. So this was like here.
Okay.
Tell the jury why you lied to the police.
I lied to the police. Basically everyone, because I was extremely fearful of being arrested. I made the first attempt of me calling 911 by telling them what happened, and I thought they were going to help me, but instead I was arrested for calling 911.
So you made the decision to lie.
I did.
So now that Sarah had filled the courtroom with her latest version of events, the defense needed an expert to back it up. So they brought in Dr. Harper, a forensic psychologist, who frankly didn't seem to realize what she was walking into. So everything was established early. Her evaluation was that Sarah suffered from PTSD and had narcissistic traits. So no surprise there.
Have you diagnosed her with anything?
Yes, so she has a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. The narcissistic traits that I identified would have to do with, as she described, being a straight-A student. She reiterated about her abilities, and I felt that that was evidence that she had low self-esteem, and her coping mechanism was to identify what made her stand out, and that would be consistent with a narcissistic trait.
And she fully supported the battered spouse narrative, which was the whole point of her being there.
The trauma was the intimate partner violence?
That's correct.
Okay. And is it your understanding that this trauma that one suffers from repeat domestic violence can cause one to be considered suffering from the syndrome, we call it battered spouse or battered woman syndrome?
Yes, so the person's coping mechanism because of that trauma, that would be what's considered battered spouse or battered partner syndrome.
After nearly an hour of going over the same points again and again, Owens finally stepped down. So by that point, she looked exhausted and confused, like she wasn't fully prepared for what she had just been dragged into. So half the time, she seemed unsure whether she was even saying the right thing. Then came the part I don't think the defense expected. So the state got up for cross-examination, and it was brilliant. I mean, they used the opportunity to grill her on everything Sarah had said in those multiple interviews, the ones used to justify the diagnosis. So Owens had barely touched on the actual day of the incident. He focused on old arguments and past run-ins, as had become the trial theme by now. And boy, didn't everyone know it too. But the state went straight for the details of the day itself, and she clearly wasn't prepared for that. I mean, you could see it. She didn't know how to answer half of it.
Now, let's talk about the February 23rd, 2020. And then there came a point in time where Mr. Torres was getting mad about being zipped in the suitcase.
She told me that he was getting mad.
What Mr. Torres was saying was, I can't breathe, correct?
That is what's recorded on the video.
Well, I'm asking you about what you recorded her saying.
Well, what made her mad was not that he was saying he couldn't breathe. It's what he was saying that was making her mad.
Well, what else was he saying?
At the time, she said that he said something that was making her mad. And so that's the extent of what we talked about at that moment.
So you didn't elaborate what something was that made her mad, correct?
Right.
You didn't find it important to learn what specifically he said that made her mad, correct?
I don't agree that I didn't find it important.
Okay, then explain. Why wouldn't you ask that question?
It's not an interrogation.
Well, you had 9 visits with her. Did you follow up on your 9th visit?
I asked her different questions about
Did you ever ask
being
her?
confrontational.
Did you ever ask her specifically in any of your 9 visits with her what it was that he said that made her mad?
No.
Did you ask her why she didn't let him out of the suitcase after 2 minutes?
Well, she thought that he could get out himself.
She described to you, Ms. Boone being the she, that she was helpful to the police?
Yes.
Do you think lying to the police is helpful to the police's investigation?
No.
Did you question her when she said that she only poked him with the bat?
No.
Not in any of your 9 visits?
So by the time the state had finished their hour-long cross, she looked more like a witness for the prosecution than for the defense. Whatever secret weapon the defense thought they had in Dr. Harper was completely swallowed up and forgotten by the end of that cross. It was a masterclass in strategy, and you could see the dynamics shift in real time. Owens and Sarah were getting angrier by the minute. And then, just to twist the knife, right after Dr. Harper stepped down, the state called their own rebuttal experts to counter her anyway. Another example of the defense thinking they were walking away with a win, when in reality, the state had every angle covered, just like they have throughout this entire trial. It left the defense visibly livid. So now that poor woman was finally allowed to go home, probably to have nightmares about the circus she's just been dragged through, the defense rested, which meant one thing: closing arguments. And this is where Dave steps up like a man who has officially run out of patience. I mean, you could tell he was done. Done with Boone, done with Owens, done with the constant objections and sidebars. I mean, he just wanted to put this case to bed and nail Sarah's nonsense to the floorboards. So he gets up there and keeps it simple. I mean, honestly, it was the perfect strategy. The case was drowning in noise. Constant talk of battered spouse and past instances. George is a monster. Sarah is mother of the year. But none of that changed the bottom line. I mean, I'm not saying it was irrelevant, but it wasn't a free pass to do what she did. And Dave knew the jury needed a clean way to cut through all the chaos. So he did the smartest thing you can do in a case like this. He pulled out the jury instructions. So jury instructions are basically the rule book. They're the judge's way of telling the jury in plain English, here are the exact elements that must be proven for each charge. Nothing more, nothing less. And Dave walked them through each requirement like he was checking off items on a shopping list. It was the right move. No drama, no over-explaining. Just here are the elements, and this is why she meets every single one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that the state has proven second-degree murder beyond all doubt. But I will cite for each element just one fact that conclusively proves each of those elements beyond all doubt. As to the first fact, that Jorge Torres is dead, well, we have a stipulation, amongst other things, that agrees to that. As to the second fact, the death was caused by Sarah Boone. She zipped him up. She didn't zip him out. 3, there was an unlawful killing of Jorge Torres by an act imminently dangerous to another in demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. That 1, a person of ordinary judgment would know is reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily harm to another, and is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or an evil intent, and is of such a nature that the act itself displays an indifference to human life. Ladies and gentlemen, her conduct fits every one of those things.
And just before he wrapped up, he dropped one last thought on the courtroom. So the whole battered spouse angle. But he flipped it. So what if George was in fact the battered spouse?
Ladies and gentlemen, are we so sure that Jorge Torres wasn't the person suffering from battered spouse syndrome?
Suddenly, the room had something real to chew on. Because when you actually look at their dynamic, the reversal makes a lot more sense. So Sarah runs that house like she's the CEO. And George is the unpaid entertainment. I mean, she talks down to him, treats him like he's beneath her, attacks him whenever she is drunk, all whilst acting like she's the long-suffering victim. The power imbalance isn't subtle, it's practically a feature in their relationship. So when Dave floated that possibility, it wasn't some wild hypothetical. It was a reminder that the story she'd been selling didn't line up with the reality everyone else could see. So now Dave had spelled things out quite clearly to the jury. It was Owen's turn. And wow, was it painful. So he walks up there with what looked like the world's saddest stationery explosion. Papers everywhere, sticky notes, scribbles. The whole thing looked like someone had planted a small explosive device in his folder. And the funniest part, the whole reason Owens even took this case was for exposure, as well as doing good deeds, of course. This was supposed to be his big moment, his chance to finish strong in front of millions. And he was all over the place. Notes everywhere, thoughts nowhere, stumbling through his own closing like he was surprised to be there.
And I want to read you something. Okay, I don't know where it's at. 'Cause I took a bunch of notes. Can't even find it. But it was something to the effect the night before. It may have been, can't remember now who it was. It's been a 2-week trial. I got a bunch of notes.
I mean, it was unprofessional, but more importantly, it was familiar, because this is exactly how the defense had operated the entire trial. No structure, no roadmap, no clear link between their emotional theory and the actual legal elements the jury had to consider. Their whole case revolved around battered spouse syndrome. Fine, that's a narrative, but they never connected it to the law.
Sarah Boone has been traumatized. That Sarah Boone is still traumatized. And the reason for the trauma is Jorge Torres. The reason for the trauma is Jorge Torres. Sarah Boone had no break. No break. Sarah Boone's long-term exposure to abuse created a state of learned helplessness and diminished her capacity to assess risk, especially in moments of heightened stress. Jorge Torres had a history of violence against Sarah, and as a result, Sarah Boone's actions were the result of fear conditioned by abuse she endured over time. That's real fear. That's real trauma. While the victim has committed verbal abuse, it is important to remember that they, Sarah Boone, are the victim. You heard what she said, that she was justified. That's uncontroverted testimony.
Legally, it was fog, a lot of noise, very little substance. And by the time Owens finished that closing, they were just left with a mess of loose papers and a defense that never managed to tie its own story back to the instructions they were required to follow. And thank God that part of the trial was over, because now it was finally time for the state to step in and bring some much needed clarity to this mess. And once William started his rebuttal, that was it. You couldn't argue with a single word.
Sarah Boone doesn't believe that this suitcase can kill him, even though he's repeatedly said, I can't breathe.
His delivery was pure structure and fact. He tied everything straight back to the law, cut through all the emotional noise, and laid out the case in a way that made the conclusion feel inevitable.
When we apply the jury instructions to her statement, all 6 of them apply against her. Done from ill will, hatred, spite, or evil intent. This was not out of fear. It's hatred, ill will, spite, and venom.
And here's the part that blows the defense's whole story wide apart. So she was the aggressor. And under the law, you can't claim self-defense if you're the one who starts it.
She started it. She created this. Let me say it loud and clear. Battered spouse syndrome does not have any effect on this case. It has no relationship to this case because she is the aggressor. Yes, Ms. Boone has battered spouse syndrome, but it doesn't apply to the case because she was the aggressor and she did not fulfill her obligations. She's required by law to do something about it. Not something, everything. There was no efforts, none. She is the initial aggressor. He is saying, I can't breathe. It is no different than a naked chokehold that she does not let go of.
What threat was she supposedly defending herself from? He was zipped inside a suitcase, completely powerless.
That's enough. I'm tapping. Jorge Torres was tapping. For the first time ever at trial, she says, I'm going to fucking end you, is what he said. She never told that to even her doctors. She makes this story change as she learns about it. You should not believe anything she told the police. You should not believe anything she told the doctors. She was at 2.5 times the legal limit. You don't have to believe her when she said they were playing hide and seek. You don't have to believe her because she doesn't know the rules. The story about the suitcase having already been down there is quite suspect. You don't have to buy her story, and you shouldn't. Somebody going down some of the stairs, all the stairs, in the suitcase, out of the suitcase, she has no injuries consistent with going down the stairs. He does. He has blunt force trauma all over him. The relationship and the power dynamics speak for itself. There's video after video of her on her bully pulpit telling him how it's gonna be, how you're gonna live your life. Go take a walk. Do this. Do that. He was treated like the third dog. This is not a self-defense case under the law. Go back and follow the law.
And when he finished that rebuttal, I knew with absolute certainty, stick a fork in her, because inmate Boone was done. So now that William had effectively shut down every excuse Sarah had tried to float, it was finally time for the jury to deliberate. And surprise, surprise, they barely needed any time at all. They went into the jury room, looked at the evidence, agreed on what they'd already suspected, filled out the forms, and that was that. Within 90 minutes, they'd let the judge know they were ready. And the moment Owens and Sarah heard that, their stomachs must have dropped. Because if the jury had anything to debate, if there was even a hint of uncertainty, it would have taken longer. But there was no back and forth, no long discussions, no maybe this, maybe that. They didn't believe her stories, and the evidence spoke for itself.
Madam Clerk, if you could please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit in Orange County, Florida, case number 2020 CF 2603. the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone. Verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree as charged in the information. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 25th day of October 2024. The form has been signed by the foreperson.
Madam Clerk, please poll our jury.
Juror in seat number 1, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror in seat number 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror in seat number 3, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror in seat number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Before that moment, I genuinely think Boone and Owens believed they still had a chance. God knows why, but once they heard how quickly the jury had reached a verdict, even those two must have realized it was over. And it was. So now we are on December 2nd, 2024, the day Sarah would finally learn her fate. After everything we'd sat through, this was the moment justice would finally be done for George. And as is standard, the sentencing began with victim impact statements.
My name is Jorge Torres. George is my brother. This is just this moment for all of you. For me and my family, it's forever.
So they were definitely emotional, and honestly, they were long overdue. After nearly 2 weeks of hearing Sarah and Owens twist George into something he wasn't, it was refreshing to finally hear some truth.
My name is Blanca Torres.
Okay.
I was blessed. She ain't gonna be blessed like me because I have my son. I raised him. I have his children. He wasn't perfect, but he was a good son.
So yes, George struggled with alcohol, but he wasn't the monster they tried to paint. He was just troubled, and living with Sarah when she'd been drinking was chaos. If he'd just stood there and taken it, like Brian did, then yes, he probably would still be alive. But not everybody can take that kind of abuse. So hearing his mother, his sister, and his daughter speak about who he really was brought some much needed humanity back into the room.
My name is Anna Victoria Torres. I'll be speaking for myself and my 2 siblings. I myself for the first year would wake up screaming every morning or night, wishing I was having a nightmare, only to wake up to remember all over again that my father is gone and I'll never be able to hear him say he loves me ever again. Because of you, Sarah, my sister is heartbroken. Because of you, Sarah, my brother is left wondering when he will ever see his father again. He was human and deserved to be treated as such.
And then, of course, it was straight back to the Sarah show. So this is where Owens stood up and started calling people to speak on her behalf.
I was a chaplain at the 33rd Street Jail for 30 years. I found her very helpful. She was kind and good to people. She loved to serve.
But here's the part that really stood out. None of these people were long-term friends, colleagues, neighbours, nobody from her actual life on the outsides.
Now, it's my understanding, Ms. Penna, that you were in the county jail with Sarah Boone.
She helped me a lot, and she would come to me. She talked to me all the time, and
every single person she brought forward was someone she'd met in jail. And that says a lot. When the only people who can speak positively about you are people you've known for a few months in a controlled environment, it paints a very clear picture.
Well, I met Sarah in jail. We became really good friends.
So he tried to present her in the best light possible, but the absence of anyone from her actual world said more than any testimony ever could. And then Owens brings in the last member of the Sarah Boone fan club, someone speaking live over audio, claiming that Sarah had once promised to donate her kidney to them.
The moment Sarah had learned the depth of my struggles health-wise,
She straight up offered strenuously to donate a kidney to me. It's merely offering is a good and heroic act.
A dramatic gesture, sure. But let's be honest, after the lifestyle she'd been living, that kidney would have been about as useful as a dead battery. And just when we thought Owens was finally done, he drags Dr. Harper back up again. That poor woman looked like someone who'd been called into work on her day off. So she starts repeating all the same stuff they'd been banging on about all trial. And then William stands up and asks her to kindly move away from the podium and sit down at the witness stand because he has some questions for her. And William was on absolute form as usual. So he lets her sit there all confident, confirming how thorough she thought she was. And then he drops the killer question. So during all this thorough work you claim to have done on Sarah's mental health, no doubt you also reviewed the 58 months worth of mental health records created at the jail too, yes?
Where has Ms. Boone been housed and living since February of 2020?
At the Orange County Jail.
And does the Orange County Jail provide mental health services to inmates?
It does.
In this particular case, have you reviewed any mental health records generated by the Orange County Jail for Ms. Boone?
No, I have not had the opportunity to do that.
And that's when the whole room basically froze. I mean, she's a forensic psychologist. Literally the one person who should be all over anything remotely related to her mental health. And she didn't even want to see 58 months of it. Nearly 5 years of records, just ignored like it was optional homework.
So, for the last 58 months or so, you have not reviewed those records?
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions.
William didn't need to say another words. That no did the whole job. Her testimony just collapsed on the spot. Pure efficiency. So after listening to the people who somehow managed to say she is a good person really, without their tongues catching fire, it was finally time to hear from Boone herself. So first thing out of her mouth, this is the edited version.
This is actually an edited version.
Now, with a normal defendant, that means we're getting the short version. With Sarah, it just means we're not getting a book this time. She also claims she was raised to never hit a woman.
I was raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse.
Which is lovely. But what about not hitting a man? What about not hitting anyone? Interesting how that part never makes the cut. And the way she tells it, George wasn't the poor bloke she attacked every time she had a drink. He was a monster, a villain, the root of all evil.
My goal begins with Jorge Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry.
And the theme was exactly as you'd expect. Everything is everybody else's fault. And she is the real victim. So she even took a moment to slate George's family.
I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters.
And accuse social media of being some kind of organized crime ring.
Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole, and for sentencing me by anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media, which condemned me in the court of global public opinion since the beginning.
But don't worry, she forgives everybody. And then she drops that line, I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I mean, is that some sort of joke? A survivor? Of what? It was an insult to every actual survivor out there. I mean, it made me angry. properly angry, because she wasn't just twisting the story anymore. She was hijacking language that belonged to people who'd lived through real trauma, not people who cause it. And thank God that was over. I mean, by the time she'd finally stopped talking, the whole courtroom felt like it needed a lie down. Only Owens and Dave left to speak now. So this is the part where the state gives their recommendation and the defense gets one last chance to beg for mercy. Because at this point, that's literally all they've got left. So Dave stepped up and wrapped it up with the clarity they'd become known for. No messing around. He laid it out brilliantly, in my opinion.
She was offered the resolution in this case of 15 years in the Department of Corrections to begin with. It's not just 15 years in the Department of Corrections, it's 15 years in the Department of Corrections, but it's predicated on something. And the consideration that it's predicated on is the defendant coming to court and accepting responsibility for her actions. She again painted herself as the victim. She's the victim of Jorge Torres. She recounted the litany of evil deeds and mistreatments that he perpetrated upon her. She's the victim of Jorge Torres' family. She's the victim of the police. She's the victim of social media. It's all about Sarah Boone. Everything's about Sarah Boone, about how she is the victim. There is no valid basis for a downward departure in this case. She deserves a life sentence. Thank you.
He said not too much, but more than enough. Not that he needed to at this point. I mean, I'm pretty sure the judge had decided what he was going to do with inmate Boone the second that guilty verdict came in. And then, obviously, under instructions from Boone, Owen steps up and decides to try something ambitious. Because instead of asking for mercy in the normal way, you know, aiming for the minimum and hoping the judge is in a generous mood, he doesn't ask for the minimum. He wants less than that. He tries for a downward departure, which in legal terms basically means below the minimum.
I've asked the court to consider a downward departure. It's not black and white. There is some gray. And it's up to you to decide what's appropriate based on the court's, based on the jury's decision. But I would ask you to temper whatever justice that you think is appropriate with some mercy. And consider the fact that the state was willing to offer 15 years on a manslaughter as a lesser included offense based on the facts and circumstances that they were aware of prior to this trial. Thank you.
After Sarah's little speech, after the rejected plea deal, after the millions wasted in taxpayer money, after her behavior throughout this entire circus from day one and lawyer one, he still stands there and asks for less than the minimum. I mean, he's definitely a trier. I'll give him that. Priceless. So after listening to Owens go on and on again, it felt like we'd all done a prison sentence ourselves. But anyway, he finally sits down and you could see the relief on George's mum's face. On the whole Torres family, in fact. I mean, they were done. They'd sat through Sarah's witnesses, Sarah's massive speech, and the entire defense continuously dragging George's name through the mud. I mean, it must have been torture. They just needed to know the sentence for their own sanity, and they needed it quick. And the best part, it was like the judge knew, because the second Owens sat down, and I mean, before he'd properly settled into his seats, the judge went straight in with, "So I've listened to everything, and I'm sentencing you, Miss Boone, to life."
The court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial. The victim impact statements presented here today the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. Court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections.
No pause, no pretending to think it over. Owens had just spent ages boring us to death arguing Sarah's case, and the judge shut it down in about 3 seconds. And just so everybody is clear, in Florida, when they say life, it means life. There is no parole. They literally lock the door and throw the key into the ocean. So in the US, every state does things differently. Some states allow parole, some don't. Some have mandatory minimums, some don't. Some stack sentences on top of each other, some run them at the same time. 2 people can commit the exact same crime in 2 different states and end up with completely different sentences. So Judge Kranig then does the usual. You have 30 days to file your appeal, and off she goes. So following being sentenced to life in prison, Sarah Boone was transferred out of the Orange County Jail and into the Florida State Prison System. So she is now housed at Lowell Correctional Institution, a facility that houses women serving long-term and life sentences. Her appeal efforts are ongoing, but despite all of that, here we still are today. A full year has passed and she's still no further forward. Not only that, she was also on her 3rd appellate lawyer last time I looked. It just never ends with that woman. So by my calculation, it's number 12 now. And she's not finished yet. As we know from past experience, that number could increase dramatically. I mean, I'm not following the appeal. I haven't got the energy to listen to any more of this. But when I was researching this one, the appellate brief still hadn't been filed. And for anyone who doesn't know, the appellate brief is the document where the lawyer has to explain what they think went wrong at trial and why she deserves another shot. Without that, the appeal doesn't even get off the ground. So when I say she's no further forwards, that's why. She hasn't even done step 1.